Welcome back to the Brotherhood Blitz. It has been a while. I'm here with my brother and co-host 49K. And brother, it's good to have you back.
It is. It's been quite some time. Glad to finally attempt to get back into the swing of things, especially for the grandest game of them all, the Season 8 National Championship game, which is special in a lot of different ways.
Special indeed, and special game we are about to have, as well as a special episode we are about to have, as we have special guest, our good friend Kameron Duty on the podcast with us to talk about this upcoming game.
Hey, gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be with you guys. It's starting a bit of a tradition, isn't it? And it's cool to be back in here in the booth with you guys, getting ready to talk about another championship game amongst us, and of course, the celebration is season 8 as a whole. Man, this is going to be great.
Yeah, it's I'm excited for this episode. Last season people loved it when we had you on for the final episode of last season. So, me and my brother have been trying our best to try to get back in the swing of things with these episodes, and we thought what better way to do the final episode again with Cam. So we're glad to have you back.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
It's going to be a different kind of episode that you would normally have, since obviously me and my brother are coaches for Texas and we are in the championship game. We're actually going to hand the reins off to Cam, and he's going to take a little bit more of a lead role for this episode. And we'll hand the reins off to you, Cam.
All right, man. I appreciate it, and to both of you, of course, congratulations for being in this spot, and folks out there listening, you guys, you know what we're here for, and I want to say before we get started, I have been listening and watching this podcast since the get go, and I will preface this by saying this has been my Monday morning commute for a long time, and to get just an opportunity to be at the head of the table to talk to with you guys today is a pleasure, and I hope I do it justice. But guys, we are here today to talk about the season 8 championship game, the national championship that's coming up in just a very short while, as of course Texas will take on Miami for what we expect to be a star-studded game. And so, in doing this, we're going to go through a lot of different topics today for everybody out there listening, and a lot of anticipation surrounding this game. Let's start with talking about, for one, the anticipation around this game. It's at a very fever pitch. If you follow us, folks, on our Discord server, over on the VGL, you will see that so much talk and hype going into this game. These two teams right here are no strangers to one another. In fact, we started this season in this exact same way that we're about to finish season 8, and that is a matchup between Miami and Texas. Let's start there, gentlemen, as we'll do a year in review for both Texas and Miami. And let's start with Texas. And gentlemen, who either one, Dylan or Cole, whoever you prefer to begin, whoever wants to go first, let's go back to that week 1 when you both squared off against Miami to kick off season 8, which really seems like it wasn't but a few days ago.
Dylan, I'll let you start this one off.
Yeah, perfect. Going back to week one, man, I knew when the schedule came out, I had a feeling before it even came out. I was like, I feel it. Gates is gonna put us against Miami again. But you know, as much as we don't want to play Miami week one, looking back at all the times we've done it, you can see why. Each of these matchups, every time Texas and Miami goes head to head, it's an absolute amazing game. Um, and just back to the week one of this season, we barely pulled it out 20-17, and I mean that was a phenomenal game. Um, and it's been a long season, and now we're here, and I would say we're what makes this matchup even more interesting than the first time we played this season is both of these teams are two very different teams. Both teams have different playbooks. Um, Both teams have way better upgraded. So it's going to be very interesting.
And would you like to add any thoughts to that as well, partner? As we before we go into some more of the in depth nature, I guess, of this season, we talk about the week one here matchup. As we said, we'll remind everybody 20-17, Texas just getting the better of Miami on that game. Do you have any thoughts of that first matchup as we started this season?
I think the main talking point for that game was there was almost no offense to be played. It almost came down to who had the ball last and just a matter of talented defenses at the time and even throughout the course of the season. I mean, Miami didn't have the hottest start to this season. I believe they're like 1-3, if I'm not mistaken, or so, 1-4. And then from like week 6 on, they have yet to lose a game and have bulldozed every single team they have faced. So I like to give credit to to us for the reason why Miami had their like historic turnaround midway through the season and switching playbooks. But the key credit to that game is obviously both defenses were able to show why why both Texas and Miami are two of the hottest teams at the time and deservingly ranked 1 and 2 at the time of facing in week 1.
And Cole, mentioning that, you bring a really good point out because a stat that I was able to dig up in looking at the this game for the kickoff of season 8, there was a combined total of 11 sacks in the last matchup between the two of you, Texas and Miami. 6 sacks for Texas, 5 for Miami.
Yeah, and I think at that point in time, both O lines weren't fairly upgraded, and with we didn't even have all that upgraded of a D line at the time either. So the fact that we were able to get 6 sacks is a credit just kind of the type of game plan that we came into, and knowing how Swaggy on Miami likes to play ball. It also helped that they ran a book that we're actually currently running now in the Clemson playbook. So a little bit of a change of tails as we go into the championship game, and also give credit we did force 4 interceptions on a martial law in week 1.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a defensive battle. I was fortunate enough to be in the booth for that game. And I remember, just how it did come down to the wire. And as we will start at Texas and we'll also look at Miami's season from a broader lens as well. But starting with Texas here, folks, when you look at the games this season, we'll go over more of them. But there's a lot of games that you guys averaged in the high 30s and 40s for the majority of the point totals for this season. But this game itself, only managing 20 points, like we said, that says a lot about the start of the season and how the defense is played. Obviously, you can see the change of the playbooks and where it kind of started to kick in. But if that is any indication, who knows what this next game may have in store for all of us here watching. And as we go with that point and go further into the season, and Dylan, let's start with you again, partner. We wanted to look at the critical moments of the season from your perspective, from your and Cole's perspectives, and starting with Texas, a season where you guys had 3 losses on the season. The first loss coming in week 3, then you lost 2 straight in week 8 and week 9 to Maryland and Arkansas. And I would love your personal thoughts on this season as a whole. Some of the was the turning points. You mentioned the playbooks, right? Was that obviously that is one of the big key moments of the season. But where do you find yourself? Let's say at week 9 after losing 2 straight. What's the mentality in the locker room?
Yeah, it's you know, starting the season, we were looking great. I'd say we had, I would say, two turning points in this season, and going back to um, I think it was week 3 when we lost to Rutgers. I think that was like the first kind of turning point because we did have some questions. Week 1 facing Miami, only putting up 20 points and barely squeaking by. But hey, look, that was against Miami. They're a great team. They have, at the time, the best rated defense in the league. So we were like, okay, we got past that game. Now we should start to cook with this book, Utah State at the time. And so we're going on to week 2. We faced Cincinnati. Once again, another great team, great talent over there. Barely squeaked by that game by a touchdown, um, 35-27. So again, that time we put up 35 points, a little bit better. Um, and then week 3 is where our kind of turning point kind of took place, and we lost to Rutgers 38-10, and a big upset. Uh, and the whole coaching staff of Texas, it woke us up. Like, hey, maybe this book isn't what we thought. Um, and we ran so many tests against all these numbers, and we came to the conclusion, we're like, okay, hey, and our good coach, assistant coach Ryan Moreland, because me and my brother, at that time we were like, hey, we need to switch books. We're this Utah State book isn't doing what we thought it was gonna do. And Ryan came in and said, hey guys, look, let's give this book one more week. Let's give it one more week. That way, we can sit down and test numbers while we still try this book one more week. So he kind of settled me and my brother down. We're like, okay, let's do that. Going on to week 4, facing Michigan, we beat Michigan, 37-17, and that was the last game with the Utah State book. So I'd say that's kind of the first turning point, was a loss to Rutgers. Kind of
Mhm.
woke us up a little bit, like um, you know, especially in the rain. Um, so going on, that's when we switched to Clemson. Was after the Michigan game in week 4. So we've been in Clemson since week 5. And then I would say the bigger turning point, not, I wouldn't say our loss against Maryland. Obviously a loss hurts, but losing to Maryland, I knew it. We just got out, just plain and simple, out coached. They had a great team over there, great game plan, phenomenal game plan. Um, them beating us 44-41. Um, so I wasn't too mad about that one. Yeah, it sucked to lose, but um, you know, uh, one, I wouldn't say that was the big turning point. The big turning point, I would say, is the loss to Arkansas in week 9.
Mm.
That's what I would say lit a fire under us. And I would say probably if we didn't lose those 2 games, I would say losing to Arkansas is a big one, but losing both back to back really lit a fire under us. And I don't think if we would have lost those 2 games, we'd be sitting here right now.
Yeah, and that's a good point because, and we'll tell the listeners out there that's watching and enjoying this with us today, to remind them that those 2 losses came in week 8 and week 9. The next time that you guys stepped onto the field was against USC in round 2 of the playoffs. So you, and I think I'll pick up here with you, Cole. You kind of come in maybe feeling a little bit with wobbly legs, right? Finishing the regular season out that way, but you guys went on a tear after defeating USC and Michigan on your way to this national championship bid. But give us your mindset of going into that USC game after, like you said, the pivotal turnaround at the end of week 9.
You can even ask my brother. That was probably the most pissed off I've ever been in a sim league ever. Like I was royally heated, upset. Like there was not words to describe just how frustrated I was that we lost back-to-back games going into the playoffs, had no momentum. Our idea was, okay, we got to lock in. It's win or go home now. We made the playoffs. That's always been my philosophy is I obviously I want to succeed and do well all the time. That's just the competitive nature in me and having, sustained success even throughout the regular season, but as long as we make playoffs, we have one of the better shots in my opinion that hey, we're going to go and kick butt and show that we can game plan with the best of teams regardless of how good you are. Now, going into the USC game, we and even the Michigan game, I'll get that in a moment. We put a lot of time and effort into game planning for USC. Now, we knew the idea that okay, USC is able to do a lot of things. They, have a top three quarterback in the league in Kiri Nova. The run game can kill you when it needs to. How about we just take away the one thing that has gotten them a lot of points that the season, and that's their deep bombs and their passing game, which forced them into screens, forced them into short down throws and underneath throws, and the run game or D line was able to clog up without bringing in any extra pressure. Going into the Michigan game, that was a lot more chaotic and hectic because a lot of our sims did not go the way that game went.
Oh wow. Okay. So there's a little insight there to that. You talk about the sims that lead up to it, and that's something that is so critical in preparation for each and every football game that takes place here in the VGL is the sims. So can I ask you if it's something that you can kind of divulge here on the air when you're looking at those sims? What kind of things obviously an overall, winning a sim is one thing, but sims are a little bit more. It's not so much just the final score at the end of the sim. It's looking at almost at an individual level of each player and each play, correct, and how the players respond to the playbook. Am I right on that?
Yeah, you're definitely correct. And the way that at least that I because me and my brother and kind of the way that I taught him to kind of look at these things is yeah, you want to see wins in a sim, but also wins can be a little bit deceiving because it all depends on okay, you're more guessing what the other team is going to run it and hoping you're correct. That is about half of game planning in its own is determining how close are you to the actual numbers that they're going to submit when it comes to game day. Then you also have a lot of the other factors that are, in my opinion, are a little bit more important. Is okay, how are you in completion percentage, third down percentage, red zone? Are you turning the ball over a ton? And then looking at also the play calling on first down, second down, and third down. And the different yardage and how close you are to your first down or in goal line situations can determine a lot of things.
That's fantastic insight, and of course, much appreciated. And if for anybody, if you ever want something really interesting to do, folks, and I'm also speaking not to just the diehard VGL fans that we have out here, but also the people who may be coming across the Brotherhood Blitz podcast for the first time. Enjoy one of these live streams. You'll see these all throughout the week on Twitch, but enjoy the conversation that takes place in the broadcast. I think that is one of the very best parts of the entire week of action that we have, and it will actually, and you guys can speak on this and tell me if I'm mistaken in saying this, but you learn a lot from the commentary that we see in the live stream chat about, and you'll see this a lot of times, people, athletes, the players who look at the sims and they'll say, we didn't see this in a sim leading up to this game. There's something that'll kind of jump off the screen and surprise the players or the coaches. Or then there'll be other times in the chat where somebody will say, we ran that play all week and we never had the issue that we're having tonight. That to me is one of the beauties of sim football. Would you all agree on that?
I would definitely agree and even attest to that is a lot of times, yeah, it sucks to see like, okay, this is not going anywhere close to the way that Sims went. A couple of factors can go into why that is the case. One, you probably got their numbers wrong, or if you didn't get them wrong, I would say not didn't get them wrong, but either you got them royally wrong, or you're within maybe 5 to 10 in each degree on your run versus pass setting and your aggression setting. Now, it can also determine depth chart wise did you have their depth chart correctly? Because it's not something that we can tell for every team either. You're more just going on based on how the season has progressed up until the point of the game, which in week one's case, it's a guessing game and a
Hmm.
crapshoot for that instance because you don't know. Um, I would definitely agree that it is it's probably the hardest thing in terms of game planning and being a coach is determining what numbers the other team is running because I'll probably say 85% of the time you're wrong.
Oh wow, yeah. Interesting.
And Dylan, if you want to add to that, because I already know you probably have a few things to that you probably agree with me on there.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of things there that you said. Um, yeah, if you know, you could have so many sims, 30, 40, 50 sims that week, and come game day, it looks completely different. And within 2 minutes of the first quarter, your eyes are wide open. You're like, oh, this ain't good. And you can just kind of tell how this sim is about to go. But sometimes that's even good because it could be um, it could make your team play even better. So that's just kind of the beauty of it. It might just make your team, uh, maybe what you were testing them at were better settings than what they submitted, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So it just, I think of it like a like a good puzzle, and it's always rewarding when an actual game goes just like your Sims did, because it kind of it's satisfaction and all the work, the hours that you put in that week, it all comes together and it makes it all worth it. Um, and then even for the losses, you still have. That's why you have a stat sheet. You go back, see what you went wrong or where you went wrong. You have all the stats still on a sheet. Um, you just go back, look at numbers, and you know there's a few games that we've lost throughout the seasons, and we kind of know what we did wrong, and that's just the beauty of simming. And um, like I said, this game, it isn't checkers; it's chess at full speed, and every move has a cost.
That's a fantastic. Yeah, yeah, and I forgive me there for interrupting you, partner. That is a fantastic way of describing this exactly, and go right ahead, Cole.
I'm agree to that. It's basically chess on steroids and two times speed.
Yeah, it is, and I think that it's so great to have this opportunity to interview you guys about this, the insight that goes into this, and I think that for a lot of people who maybe are not on the coaching side, they get to see a lot of the things or hear a lot of the things that we're talking about today that leads up to this national championship game. We'll come back to the insights and preparation for this game in just a little while because we want to look at Miami as well. Of course, this is a squad that when you look at the start of the season, losing three of their first four games, losing to you guys in Texas, beating Arkansas, but then losing the next two games to LSU and Hawaii. Very, very tough opponents. And not only did they lose to these opponents, but in the case of Hawaii, it was a 1 point loss, 35-34. And at LSU, it was 34-24. But since that point, we talk about a turnaround. When we look at your opponents, guys, from across the board here, Miami, from week 5 onward, have not lost a game. In fact, in these games that they have played, there's not been many games that have been, at least by the final score, close calls, if you will. Maybe the closest coming in week 5 against USC as they squeaked that one out 19-17. After that, though, and you get down into week 8 and week 9, victories against Missouri and Cincinnati, Miami is certainly hitting full steam ahead. And Dylan, I will start with you on this one. But in looking at Miami, looking at your opponents, the critical moments of the season for you through your eyes, looking at Miami, what are you feeling, sir?
Yeah, I would say Miami's tough and they're bringing the heat, and I would say we are definitely feeling that heat. Um, you know, like you said, since week 5, game after game after game, win after win after win, and most of them, those games weren't even close. They're coming to play and they're not stepping off the gas. Um, ever since week 5, I would say only two of those games were close, and that was against USC and Colorado. Every game since were, I would say, blowouts, um, or at least, three or more scores. And that's just the type of team that Miami is, and how they've always been, not just this season. And to just the way Swaggy, the head coach of Miami, likes to coach, it's always been fascinating because he, you gotta love Swaggy, man. He'll always try to get in your head. Um, you almost, I wouldn't say don't trust him, but don't believe him. Um, going up into the game, he'd be like, "Man, I haven't even simmed, or you guys sim." Just kind of funny, little jabs here and there.
Psychological.
Yeah. Um, but then come game day, he just obliterates you, and you're like, whoa. And I would say ever since week 5, he's been just obliterating teams. And sometimes they'll start close, and the key of Miami's team this season is they're a second half team, and um, you can play them well in the first half, but come second half, you better keep your foot on the gas, because if you don't, they're not waiting for you.
Absolutely, and that is a good point that you make. And from the broadcast booth, I can certainly say that I've said many times that this second half is a totally different animal when it comes to playing this team. Certainly. So Cole, and then I'll also ask you that very same question, sir. And I'll also say this to you. Looking, let's go back to week 5, as we said, and Miami is sitting, at 1-3, and I can guarantee that nobody ever once had the thought cross their mind that Miami wouldn't be in the hunt at the end of this thing, even with a 1-3 record at that point in the season.
I can and see where the thought process is for a lot of people in the league. I can even remember all the way back, in week 4 going into week 5, we're like, it's almost win out for Miami, or you have a shot of not even making the playoffs. Now, we knew that Miami was kind of going into the easier part of their schedule, we'll say, and probably their hardest games left were USC at that point in time, and then we thought, at beginning of the season, Cincinnati's going to be a pretty tough team, even with the first season head coach. But the only close games they had were USC, which was expected, Colorado, which kind of surprised some, and then I'll even say the Ole Miss game was close up until the second half, and the rest of the games they blew teams out by 4 or 5 scores. So it's just got to give credit to the way that Swaggy coaches his team. In I'd like to say it's predictable but not predictable, because you might see what's coming, just in your mind is like, oh, I mean, you can't stop it. Like, it's coming, but you can't stop it.
Certainly, and that's the great thing about a season which we have here. 9 weeks of regular season football, and then the playoffs that come to follow. It's not a sprint; it's a marathon. And so, like you said, I don't think anybody looked at Miami being 1-3 and thought, you know, there's no way that these guys can't find themselves in the thick of this at the end of it. I think you all knew that there was a lot of time left to be had, and that with the schedule going the way it was, and boy, they showed up in a big way, taking the top spot in the rankings here at the end of the season, leading into this matchup, and of course, winning against Rutgers and Hawaii. And I'm actually going to go off script just a little bit, guys, because I did have a question that just popped into my mind. But I do want to ask you folks, what is it like when you're watching these semifinals, you're watching these opponents go through these games, you have respect and admiration for each of them, and that just has to be some of the most mentally brutal things to go through in watching these sims play out, especially like watching Miami tear through the competition in rounds 2 and 3 against Rutgers, against Hawaii. I just, if you have thoughts on that, I would love to hear them.
Dylan, you want to go first, or you want me to go?
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely touch on that. You know, definitely, watching these. these playoff matches, especially watching the Miami ones, um, you always, especially in playoffs, you always are watching your potential opponent, and just kind of goes back to the simming mindset. You always want to uh, see what your opponent is, or opponent or potential opponent um, is doing during their games, and you want to watch their formations. You want to watch their third down percentage. Um, you want to watch what the team they're playing is doing, and is it working? Um, to see, maybe you should try some type of thing that they're doing that's working, or maybe it's not working and you try something completely different. Um, uh, just watching Miami through these playoffs, it's just been, like my brother said, you know what's coming, you know, what they're going to try to do. Just the question is, can you stop it? And I think that's going to be the main key point of this game in the national championship. Uh, is, can we stop their high-powered offense? And yeah, just watching them tear through these teams in the quarterfinals, semifinals, it's been kind of eye opening. And um, but with that being said, I will say we are ready. We're ready for them.
And I'll add a little bit into that as well. And kind of I agree with everything that you said. You know what they're doing. You know exactly almost to a T kind of the game plan that they're going to want to have, especially with the playbook that they're using. That they're just going to want to pass the ball, and then Marshall Law is going to dot you up with his legs. And we'll get to that. I know Cam has a few questions later on involving kind of the matchups and the keys to going into that game. But in terms of watching Miami throughout the season, throughout the playoffs, and through the quarter and semifinal rounds, the only team obviously they faced Hawaii and they lost by one. Then you go into the semifinals and they absolutely demolished them by 36 points and scored 55 on them. None of us expected Hawaii to get absolutely dismantled like that. You'd be lying if you said you expected that. Now, watching that Hawaii and Miami game and going into deeper detail into a coaching mindset instead of watching it as a fan and as a bystander and spectator, there is limitations to what Miami can actually do in a sense, and we're hoping to take advantage of things come tomorrow.
All right, and that's a perfect segue to what we were going to talk about, folks. As you guys said, this is great. If y'all are just coming across this, this is the Brotherhood Blitz podcast. I am Kameron Duty in the chair today, getting to interview both Dylan and Cole here in lead up to this national championship game that we're just so close to viewing here, and we're so excited for that. But leading up to it, another question I want to ask you guys: how has the week been so far for you guys? Obviously, I don't want you to give any information that you're not comfortable with. A lot of that, of course, is confidential playbook stuff and within the team locker rooms. But as a general vibe leading up to the week, how has this national championship preparation felt since your victory on Monday night?
Uh, I I'd like to say for the most part we're all in high spirits. I mean, we've made four of the last five semifinals, made two national championship appearances in the past three seasons. I mean, you'd be lying if I said I wasn't ecstatic to finally make it back to the big game, and chances of hoping getting my first. Our first national championship, especially mine, that I've been chasing for two IRL years spanning throughout multiple leagues. On the other hand, I've been stressing, I've been nervous, I'm sweating. I'm ready for this game to be over with because I hate game planning against Miami and just how crazy and dominant they can be. And I have no clue how tomorrow's going to go.
Dylan, how about you, sir?
Yeah, Cam, when you asked this question, I just got kind of a big smile on my face as you were finishing asking the question. Just because it's been wild. ups and downs. And just like my brother said, obviously ecstatic to be here. Only two teams make it, and we're honored to be here. Um, and honored to be here again for the second time. And you know, but at the same time, he's right. It's stressful. It's you're nervous. But I will say, uh, me and my brother, yes, we're brothers, but we're also very polar opposites. And it's interesting because every come game day, we always ask each other. We talk to each other every day, and we always ask each other like, "Hey, you ready? You ready for the game tonight? You nervous?" And I know on Monday, when we faced Michigan, he asked me that day. He was like, "Are you nervous?" And you know, like I said, we're polar opposites. I was like, you know what? This one, no, I'm not. I feel pretty confident. And like he said, Sims didn't go great. Um, we busted our rears on over the weekend for that game. And but I told him, I said, hey, I you know I feel good about this game. I kept saying I feel good about this game, and he was nervous, but that's my brother. He's the head coach. He's very passionate about this, and he's nervous about every single game, and I don't blame him. Um, but yeah, going through this week, kind of the same thing. Obviously, Sims have been back and forth. They're a great team, but over the just 2 days, starting late Monday night after the Michigan game, to yesterday, all day yesterday, kind of all day today, just simming, trying to find something that clicks the most. And again, I feel pretty good, and um, it's going to be a great night. No matter what happens, and I'm sure me and my brother both, you know, as corny as it may seem, just like season 6 when we made the Natty, win or lose, we shed some tears. Just the amount of hours that we've put into this together. It's been a blast, and we're excited to hopefully get our first ring together.
I don't think that's corny at all. I think that's actually very a great insight, and I think it's very touching. And of course, you guys being family and going through this together, I think it's a very special thing. I think it reminds me of the phrase "football is family," and it is in a lot of ways. Not only in a brother sense, brother or sister sibling sort of sense, but also the families that are made in the locker rooms of these teams, or in even the broadcast booth, or the stats department, or the production, just people that work together, a community feeling. And then that actually extends beyond the football field, to the point that if your locker room buddies or your friends, and like we said, whatever department you work in the VGL, if they know you're going through a good time, they celebrate with you. If they know that you're having a tough time, they're there for you. And it is one of the joys, I think, of being in the VGL. And so I understand certainly where you're coming from, and I think it's a great thing.
And I'll add one more thing into that, and it has to do with, obviously, with the game, more just kind of the legacy for both Texas and Miami and Swaggy and myself and my brother. Win or lose, obviously someone's gonna win their first ring. One of these teams is gonna win their first national championship out of the 8 seasons that the VGL has been a thing. On the other hand, both of us have been here twice. Both of us have lost in our only appearance. One of us is about to be 0-2 with no ring, while the other one's lifting the championship high, high and and proud that
Mhm.
they won their first championship. Being 5 seasons, and I've made the semifinals 4 out of the 5 seasons that Texas has been in the league since season 4. You have no idea how much it's gonna how good it's gonna feel if we somehow manage off to knock probably one of the best teams in league history on paper.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. and I certainly wish you the best in doing that, and a best game, for everybody that gets a chance to participate in this game that's coming up. Like I said, in just moments from now, folks, you can feel the excitement building, and as we start to wind our way down in this episode as we get ready for the game itself. Let's quickly talk about some of the key matchups that you guys see, and again, I'll go to both of you, and I'll start with you this time, Cole. We'll go right back to you, partner. Some of the key matchups, key players for both of these teams that you're in particularly looking at heading into this game.
So I'll start with Miami, and I think we'll talk about kind of the key players, and then I'll go quickly into kind of the key points for Miami, and then the same thing for Texas, and then I'll let my brother kind of give his thoughts on the subject. I think for the key players to watch out for Miami, and we'll start on offense. Obviously, is going to be their signal caller, Marshall All. Yes, has he been one of the more turnover-prone QBs in during the season? Yes. Has he turned it around and been one of the more dominant dual threat quarterbacks this season since week 5? Absolutely. And it also goes in their credit that their receiving core is fast, hot, and can beat any single corner in secondary in the league. And you gotta give credits to Dalen Sparks, Delano, and Uslo, and then obviously they added an addition into DeBelts early after the season started. Then you also look at their defense, and their D line's crazy. Only 2 seniors on the D line. They're still going to have 2 of those D linemen, next year. But you got to give credit to, I think, the 3 main focal points on defense, which I think is their stronger suit, is Hunter Shook and Bo Martin Jr., 2 of their starting linebackers. And you also got to look at Chance Leak, one of their starting safeties, who all 3 can light up your run game and force turnovers and force you behind the line. That's going to be hard to stop. I think the game plan for Miami in terms of coming out a victory for this game is going to be, for one, don't turn the ball over. Turn the ball over, it can lead into very tight situations and field position that it's kind of hard for your defense to get stops in. And I also think if their defense can force mistakes, get pressure on Cole Powell and Texas, and force them to kind of play faster than they probably are trying to, I think it's going to be an easier ball game for Miami, and it could be a rough showing here for Texas. Going on to the Texas side, also got to give credit to the signal caller Cole Powell. I think also kind of the same thing goes for him. You don't turn the ball over, there's a very good shot you're walking out of Indianapolis as a national champion as a freshman. I also, this is not even a player, but I think the O line. Can the O line give Cole Powell enough time to make plays to Carter Washington, Mr. President, Kyle Beasley, Malachi Black Creek, and Jace Holloway? Even give credit to the tight ends, Jason Pinkert and Dorian Meeks. But I think the running game, in a sense, Jesus Saves has got to have a good running game, but it also goes in credit. Can the O line get the blocks that they need to against a very aggressive Miami defense? And then I'll make this quick, but give credit to a few players on defense, and True Powers, who is could potentially, I think, 4 sacks, and he breaks the single season sack record. He's at 16 right now, and 19 is the record. And Max Capone having a all Gridiron league type of performance. It's going to be a tough game for both sides, but I do think the turnover department and how efficient can they be in the red zone and on third downs.
That is great stuff. And Dylan, your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, I'll start with Miami as well. I think the key to victory for Miami is just, stick to what you're doing. Obviously, it's working. All these teams, especially the teams in the playoffs they face, they made playoffs for a reason, and they know what you're trying to do, and still they couldn't stop it. So why change? And I think, you know, the key to them is just stick to what they know, stick to their deep balls, um, stick to their quarterback and change it up, make the defense guess, some read option here and there. And on the defense, I agree with my brother there. Force freshman Cole Powell to throw some interceptions or force some fumbles, and you do that, and you're looking pretty good at the end of the fourth quarter. And yeah, I think it's pretty simple for Miami. They yeah, just keep doing what they're doing, and you know uh, force Texas to not be Texas, if that makes sense. Um, but going on to Texas, actually kind of wrote this down so I didn't forget, and actually almost exactly what my brother said. Um, the key to victory for Texas is two words: offensive line. Um, you know, the offensive line of Texas, it's just plain and simple going to have to hold their blocks the best they can to give Cole Powell the comfortable pocket he needs, to find all of his weapons. And if the pocket keeps collapsing, you know, he's going to start forcing throws, and that's when turnovers happen. Um, but me and my brother, part of the coaching staff, we've done our best, these past 2 days to keep that from happening. This week, and Miami's defense feeds on mistakes, and we just can't make them. If we can keep the pocket open and finish good drives, I really like our odds. Now on the defensive side of the ball, it's simple: take the deep ball away. If we can take their deep ball away and make them punt a few times, maybe hold them to some threes, or even get some turnovers, I like our odds there too. But that goes back to the offense. If we do any of those, the offense is going to have to capitalize on those defensive stops, and they're going to have to put 7 on the board because, yeah, field goals will not win this game.
That's great stuff, guys. Really good insight there. And I will actually, Cole, do you have anything before we move on to our closing remarks tonight that you want to add to that thought before we segue?
I think everything that he said was it was on about on par with kind of a lot of the stuff that I mentioned. That it's going to come down to which team can be more efficient, which team can be more clean with the football, and I'm ready for. I want to say I'm ready for the season, but then again, I'm not because of how great this season has been and how it feels to be back in the position that we are in. But I'm also ready for a small break, and also get to prepare for season 9.
And that is a great way, as we said, winding down this episode. The final question that I have for you guys: you mentioned this season. What a celebration that it feels like it has been around the VGL as a whole. So the last question that I want to have, and here's what we'll do, guys. I'll ask you all this question. I will again turn the floor back over to you guys to wrap things up. But this is my last question for you guys before we get ready and focus on the game coming up just very shortly here, Texas and Miami. I want to know your all's final thoughts on season 7 as a whole. We called it jokingly the State of the Union, the State of the League before we started recording tonight, guys. And I can tell you that for me, in a very condensed, short thought, this has been a season of growth. It's been a season of accomplishments, and it's been a season that I think that everybody from top to bottom in this virtual gridiron league should very much be proud of. And Dylan, I will start with you, and then Cole, you can wrap us up there. And like I said, guys, I have enjoyed being in this seat, getting to talk to you guys, and I will turn it back over to you guys after this question is over. But you guys go ahead and let me hear your thoughts on this season 8, the State of the Union, if you will.
Yeah, this season has, it's been probably one of my favorite seasons, since I've been in sim leagues, and it's just makes it showcases what good this league does. It's it's where game plans actually matter. You know, yeah, you can have all the talent, on your team, but if you don't have a great game plan, talent's not going to matter. And that's just what I absolutely love about this league. And you know, it just the amount of upsets we've had. You just go back and look. You know, you can go if you're on here listening to the podcast. You can go on the website. Just go to the season 8 schedule. Just go back to all the weeks. Just upset after upset after upset. It's just been a wild ride this season, and I know my brother's going to touch on some cool things that the season has or this league has done this season, and some achievements the league has made. When I turn over to him, but yeah, I just want to have you know this season has been great, just plain and simple. I think every team had their ups and downs, but that's looking back on it, that's why we're here. And yeah, brother, take it away.
A few cool things that the league has done over the course of the season. We have hit 1,000 members, not once, but twice, which is cool. We were able to get back up past the thousand mark in terms of total members throughout the league. We have also increased the overall quality of the broadcast department between from season 7 to this season, where it's probably in one of the better states it's been since my time in the league. And you also get to give credit. I think this is probably one of the, if not the best group of coaches that we've had throughout any season in the VGL throughout the entirety and history of its existence. Which you gotta give credit to Gates and Vex. They have put a tremendous and an amazing product out there for us to enjoy this type of stuff and who consider this as a hobby, are able to come here, enjoy, meet new people, and I think that's what makes sim leagues for those that look past like, oh, you have to uh, pay to be good or pay to do anything. This league is entirely free if you want it to be. Now, obviously, a lot of the pay stuff goes into be able to have the quality of broadcasters, have the content has stepped up. The website is sure isn't free, uh, and that goes all back. All the money that goes into the league goes right back into beefing up and doing quality of life stuff and all these cool little different things that the league has to offer throughout website and on Discord. And it's not possible without a lot of the cool members that the league has gotten over the past 8 seasons. And once again, give credit to Vex and Gates for the product that they have put out there.
Certainly, and just great comments there, guys. And again, let me thank you all for this opportunity, and of course, you guys take it away. But let me say thank you first to you guys for giving me this opportunity and allowing the past couple of seasons I've been a part of this with you guys. A real pleasure, and of course, a big thanks to everybody that. I've had a chance to interact with this season as well. It has been certainly very special, and again, thanks to you guys, and you guys take the floor now.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, Cam. As always with you on the podcast, second season in a row. We'd obviously like to have you back on in the future. It's been an absolute blast talking about VGL football with you, um, here with my brother as well. And yeah, I just want to ask my brother real quick if he has a final thought on the game tomorrow night.
Baggy, I hope you're listening. I wish you nothing but luck, but we're ready. I hope you are too, and I hope you don't you put some thought into the game plan that you put in, because we ain't gonna make it very easy on you.
Yeah, look, Miami is the hottest team right now, and I think that's something that we can all agree on. But heat only matters until it meets something it can't burn. And we've been tested. We've definitely been humbled, but rest assured, the Texas coaching staff has absolutely dialed in. You know, Miami's been running through everybody, but this isn't everybody. This is Texas.
I've built a legacy in the past 5 seasons, and I ain't about to let it die on and let it rest on the top of on a hill in the championship game. Win or lose, the legacy of Texas is gonna live on, and I wish, like I said, Swaggy, hope you're listening. I wish you nothing but luck and nothing but respect and love for you, and let's go put on a game for the ages tomorrow.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun night, and like my brother said, Swaggy, good luck, but not too much luck, and um, yeah, it's gonna be fun. Um, like my brother said, I hope you bring your A game because Texas is bringing their A game, and may the best team win. And Colton, if you wanna take us away.
Yeah, the final episode of season 8, and which has kind of been an off season for us. We didn't know we just started this, during season 7, but a lot of stuff going on in both me and my brother's lives that we kind of had to take a step back and readjust to figure out if this is something we can even reliably do going forward, because it's either we're all in or we wouldn't doing it at all. And I'm glad to hopefully be able to get back in the swing of things going into next season, and we have a lot of talks that we're going to have throughout this off season, and into changing certain things, even changing the scheduling for when we record and when we are releasing is up for change as well. But appreciate everyone for tuning in. Season 8 national championship on the line, Texas versus Miami, and we're gonna have Cam and Ryan in the booth for the game, and which is gonna be exciting to listen and watch, and hope all the new members that we have had over the last 2 weeks, and even that have been here and are OGs of the VGL, tune in, watch a masterpiece be put on for everybody in the championship game. I'm 49K. I got my brother Dylan, Cam, special guest as always. Appreciate you. This is the Brotherhood Blitz, and thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.